Here's 5 things I wish I'd known when I started paper crafting. They would have saved me so much time and effort and mistakes. In this video, I'm going to cover things from die cutting, stamping and embossing as well. And they are definitely tips that you can take away whether you are a scrapbooker, a card maker, or even if you love your journaling. So my first tip is for looking at your layering die cuts. Now, when you layer your die cuts together, you're going to get absolutely beautiful results. This is one of my favourite sets, and I'll make sure it's linked down in the description below for you. When you layer it up, you're going to get such a stunning effect. But how can you improve this even more? It's very, very simple. All you need to do is take a little bit of time and effort to cut 2 layers of each of the dies. If you do this, you take the extra time to cut an extra layer of each, then glue everything together. The difference is amazing. Take a look at this. I mean, this is 1 layer, this is 2 layers. You can see the thickness of the die cuts there, the depth and the contrast that you've got by just adding an extra couple of layers into this one is so worth the effort. It looks so much more dimensional, and that is really going to stand up much more on your project. Now, sticking with die cutting and focusing on layering dies, when you are putting these layers together, it's really important that you do not use pattern paper for all of your layers. I wouldn't personally even use it for one of your layers, particularly if it's an intricate design, but I'll show you that with this particular butterfly die. So this one has 3 layers, and I've cut the first one from 1 pattern paper and the next 2, and they get more intricate as they go through, from a really pretty floral paper. I love the paper. But to be honest, stick with it as a background, because look what happens when you start to layer up. This one doesn't look too bad, although you're sort of missing the actual design of the die cut, because the dark and the light areas of the paper is just sort of hiding where the shape is. And then this one, even more intricate when it's placed on top. Look, you just lose everything. It just looks like, I don't know, there's just no definition between the layers at all. Now look what happens when I switch this up. So I'm going to keep with the same patterned base. To be honest, if I'm going to use any pattern paper with a die cut like this, any sort of intricate die cut, in fact, this is as detailed a pattern paper as I would go. Then I'm going to use solid cardstock. So putting that over the top, you can really clearly see the defined borders, and then this one over the top as well. Again, you can see every element there. Look at the difference between the two. How much more does that stand out? And it's irrelevant that it's different colours. It's having that solid colour cardstock so you can really see the edges of the design. Next, we're going to have a look at embossing folders and why sometimes does your paper or cardstock stick to the embossing folder? Why sometimes does it crack and even completely break in there? Well, the chances are you're probably using the wrong weight of cardstock. So I'm going to run through 2 cardstocks that are very similar, but one is 180 GSM and one is 300, and you will see the difference. First, let's start with the lightweight one. Now, this is almost a paper. It's a heavyweight paper, a very lightweight cardstock, and I'm going to put that in completely dry. Now, I usually spritz my cardstock with water when I've got 3D embossing folders. This helps with the stretch and getting all the detail. There's no way I'm going to do it with this paper. It will just disintegrate and fall apart under the pressure. So let's open this up after running it through, and in fact it's closed up so much it's hard to get out. Now I can see straight away. Let me just bring this up for you. I've got lots of cracking going on. Can you see this warping, this wrinkling here where the paper has stretched as well? It's just too much. Now when I try to remove this, it's really stuck inside and to be honest, I'm going to risk tearing that. There's even some fibers being left inside. It's a beautiful design, but I definitely need the heavier weight cardstock. Look, you can see that tearing all over the design. So let's try this with the 300 GSM instead. Now this time I am going to mist very lightly with some water to help that emboss, which I mentioned earlier. Pop it inside the folder and run it through in the same sandwich as I just did last time. And let's see how this one's performed. I have got a beautiful emboss, but everything is actually intact. Look at that, so much better. Let's compare the two. You can see the cracking, you can see where it's basically torn, and it's also wrinkled up at the bottom here where my thumb is. But this one is lovely. Okay, so the embossing probably isn't quite as deep, we can see that, but it's that depth that it gets with the thinner one that causes the breakage. This one's absolutely perfect. I can add my gilding wax to it, I can add my ink to it, and I know that I've got no problems at all. Now on to stamping, how to get the best possible results. With your stamps, it's very easy to think that you just need to press as hard as possible to get all the detail to come out, but I would definitely not recommend this. Now, another tip for you is when a stamp is brand new, as mine is here, I like to prepare it, and I like to do that by taking the coating off that is on the stamp through the manufacturing process. Now, you only need to do this once, and the easiest and really the least expensive way of doing this is simply by using a pencil eraser. I've got one of these ones that are quite large and flat, and I just rub the flat surface over the design just back and forth as if I'm trying to erase pencil marks from it, and do it gently, and then make sure you brush away any of the residue that's come away from the eraser. That is going to leave you with more of a matte surface. You'll be able to feel that straight away. Then I like to go in with a clear ink before I put my coloured ink on top. So something like an embossing ink, just tapping a little over the surface. This is also going to help your ink to stick to your stamp. And then I go in straight away with my black ink or whatever colour ink you want to use. Now, I'm not pressing into the stamp. If I was pressing into the stamp, I'd be squishing ink into all the detail where I don't actually want it. Then I'm going to come over and just press ever so lightly. I'm just tapping, tap, tap, tap. You can take a look and make sure there's no missed areas, and if there is, focus the tapping, the pressure around there. But I'll show you in a moment the difference if you just press down really hard and what happens. See there, I've got a perfectly detailed and clear image. Let's take this away. Let's put another piece in. Again, I'm going to just line this up once more. Pick this up. So let's load the stamp with a lot of ink. Let's really press this down. Now, what's going to happen when the stamp, the detail is really tiny, that ink is going to sit in all those little crevices, nooks and crannies, and really just make a mess. So the image won't be as clear. And then I'm going to press down really hard. This is where people think they need to use extra pressure. When you've got a stamp platform like this, you really don't need to. A light tap is more than enough. So press, 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 and then look at the difference. So the beautiful there is really quite blurry. Everything's thicker, it's not as clear, it's not as defined, and it's really just not as professional looking. Lastly, back to die cutting. So when you've die cut something that's really intricate, you know you're going to pull that die cut out and you're going to have all the little bits that you've got to use your pokey tool with to pop out, and it's going to take you forever. Use this quick trick to make sure that as many of the pieces stay inside the die, because it's so much easier to clean the die than the paper die cut. So once I've put my pokey tool through one of the release holes and just released a corner, I tend to very gently take this out and bend it backwards. Okay, so I'm not going to just pull the whole thing really quickly. I'm going to bend it backwards on itself. You can see that. So what this does is leaves as much of the paper of the little die cuts inside the die. Now, not everything's going to stay in the die, but many of the pieces will, as you can see there. This just means if you are creating a project, it is so much quicker for you to then clean up your die later. And this is almost perfect. There's a couple of little bits that I need to clean out, but that is going to take me so much less time. Now, as for actually cleaning my die, a brush like this is perfect, even an old toothbrush if you have it. And what I tend to do is slightly bend my die. So I'll place it down, lift up the edge with my thumb in the middle. So I'm giving it a slight curve, not enough to bend it permanently at all, a slight curve. And then I brush over. And as you can see, all the pieces come out so quick and easily. That is by far the quickest way for you to clean the pieces out of your dies and your die cuts. So that's my top 5 things that paper crafters just should not do. Don't forget to also check out this video just here, because I think you'll enjoy this. And if you haven't already, I'd love it if you could subscribe to my channel. Now, the dies and the products that I've been using today in this video are all linked down below for you. Some of them are brand new. They're not being released for a week, but the link will still take you there in a few days' time. Thank you, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you again soon.